Hey guys, how's it going? It's Janie over here at JaniesSweets. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another Friday Fixes episode where you ask me okay questions and I do my best to answer them for you. Today's episode is going to be talking about the differences between having a hustle and having a business. I know this was not something that you guys actually requested, but I really thought we need to define the two. We need to talk about the differences, the similarities, because a lot of us, we think we have a business, but in reality, what we have is a hustle. A lot of the mistakes that I have made all throughout my baking career have been because I had a hustler mindset, right? I wasn't thinking in terms of this being a business. So we're gonna talk about a few things here. The first thing I want to define the two, and this is not the Webster definition, this is actually not on the internet, but I'm just gonna put it kind of like in layman's terms just so you can see the big difference between the two. So a hustle, as we would call it, is something that you are probably not trying to feed your family off of. This is something that you are gonna do to get quick cash on the side. Maybe you need to buy a new couch, you need to replace your stove, you need to get vacation money, whatever the case may be. You're hustling to get something, and then that's just that. Now, when you have a business, this tends to be something that's more long-term. This tends to be something that you are investing, you're all in. A lot of money is gonna go into, and making this business take off, whereas a hustle might not take that much money. You're going to want to feed your family off of this. You're gonna want to maybe grow that business. So a business is something that you should consider it long-term, whereas a hustle is something that maybe you're just doing it for the time being because it's lucrative, it's profitable, so you're just gonna, ride the wave. Now that we've semi-defined what each of these are, you are going to very early on in your career determine what it is that you want to have. And that's okay if it goes from one to another. It can go from being a business to a hustle, or it could go from being a hustle to a business, but you really need to define what it is that you are doing because it's going to set the tone and determine how you should be moving. For example, right? You're not gonna go ahead and form an LLC when all you're trying to do is have a little hustle on the side, right? On the same token, if you're just trying to do a business, a legit business, and you don't, incorporate or form an LLC or do something like that, have a sole proprietorship, determine what the business is. When comes tax season and you have to pay taxes, you might run into a couple of, issues. Or maybe I didn't know I was supposed to pay that much. Well, if you had incorporated, maybe you wouldn't have. Little things like that. So that's why I mean by you need to determine what it is that you are going to do early on. Moving on, let's talk about a few pros and cons that you should consider. There might be many more pros and many more cons, but these are the few that I was able to come up with and that were the simplest one to wrap your head around. We're gonna start with the hustle first, and let's talk about a few pros. The first biggest pro that I find here is that it can take little to no money to set up. All you need is a good product, a good client base, boom, there you have it. You have your little hustle. It's a really simple exchange. You don't have to worry about anything. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to start it up. The other thing is just as easily that you can set it up, you can just as easily dissolve it. There's no commitment. You haven't set up anything. You probably don't even have a name or anything that's set in stone. You could just dissolve it. You could decide one day that, you know what, I don't want to do this, and dissolve it. I think about it as like a relationship where you are, just a boyfriend and girlfriend situation, and where you're married, right? You can get out of both, but it's much easier for you to just walk away if you're just somebody's girlfriend or somebody's boyfriend, rather than if you are married. You can get a divorce, but that costs money. There's a lot of mess involved in it, and you don't want to go there. You got to think twice. So I think about it that way. So it's so easy for you to just walk away when you're just having, a little hustle on the side. The other thing is that your name is not on the line, okay? You could be called JaniesSweets, and if this is not like a thing, you could just dissolve it if there was like some kind of controversy or anything, like I don't know, like you gave somebody food poisoning, we're just going with a hypothetical situation here. I could say, you know what, I don't want to be Janie Sweets anymore. I just lay low for a couple of years, I move, and then I'm, you know, I don't know, Janie's Desserts, right? And I have nothing to do with anything. So you didn't create a brand, most likely. You didn't create like a legacy, most likely. It was just the hustle. You were just selling cakes, you know, no big deal. So with all good things come some bad things. So we gotta talk about a few cons. When you do only have a hustle, you don't have a business, you don't have, you know, any licenses, you don't have any credentials or anything like that, people tend to not take you seriously. Now, does that mean that your work is not as good, if not better, than a lot of people who do have all these credentials and licenses? That's up to, you know, debatable, but you don't get taken as seriously, I find, when you're just doing this on the side. The other thing is that there is no protection. You can get sued. Now, granted, you can get sued if you have a business as well, but there are things that are going to protect you, whether you have an LLC where if they sue you, they cannot go after your personal stuff, you know, or if you have business insurance, you know, like your insurance would cover it. But if you are just doing this on the side, like, you're not really protected. And 9 times out of 10, like, the law is probably going to favor on, you know, the side of the other person, because what, you didn't have a contract, you didn't, like, you were doing this out of a black hole, you know? So that's the other thing. The other thing is that a lot of us don't understand and don't know that depending on how much money we make, depending on your state, you do have to pay taxes. And if the IRS finds out that you are operating, you know, under the table, and you're not, you know, reporting your taxes, you can get fined pretty heavily. So that is a really big con that you should honestly operate at your own risk. So do the research and make sure you're not getting yourself in any trouble when it comes to that. So now that we have established a few pros and cons of a hustle, now let's talk about the business, right? Now, again, this is not every pro and every con that you're gonna find, you know, with forming an entity and having a proper business setup, but these are a few things that I personally like or dislike about having a business. Number one thing is that it is easier to scale. Once you have a good model and it is running perfectly, you can take that same model and put it in different places. Granted, you need the capital, you need the cash to do that, but you can take that same model that has been working and expand it in different places. You already have the blueprint, you already are incorporated, or you have your LLC and all of that, so you might as well just keep expanding. You can take that model and put it somewhere and have somebody else run it for you. So it's easier to scale your business because it's already there and you have your blueprint. So that's the number one thing that I like about it. The other thing is that, honestly, I probably should have put that first. It was a big con for me, you know, with the hustle, is that you are protected. If you have an LLC, like I said, you are protected, where they're not going to come after your personal assets should you get sued, should anything happen. Also, if you have business insurance, if you have all these things, like, you most likely are going to have a contract, you most likely are going to have like different things and protocols and things that are put in place to protect yourself. You're gonna be a little bit more careful because this is your business and you don't want, you know, negativity surrounding it. So with all of that being said, the protection that comes with having the business is a little bit more reassuring to me. Another pro is that your name can belong to you, right? When you have a business, you own a business, you take that name, right? Nobody else can swoop in and, you know, grab that name. This is why I always tell people that if you are getting traction and you're getting known as something, to go ahead and grab that name. Get it across all social media platforms and everything, because you never know, you know, if you are going to make a website and all of that, people can grab your domain name, you know. If you're gonna get an EIN number, you know, for an LLC or anything like that, go ahead and grab that, like, now, today, because if somebody else gets it, that's it. There's nothing else you can do about it unless that person sells it to you, and depending on how much you really want it, they can sell it to you for a pretty hefty price. So make sure that you grab that name and make sure that it's yours. Now, the con that goes with that is it's expensive. My God, you guys, between licenses, having a website, incorporating, you know, getting an LLC, domain names, this, that, the other thing, and the third, like, before you know it, like, even paying taxes, you are spending a lot of money. You're spending a lot of money to maintain a business. If you have a brick and mortar type of business, and this is not just out of your home, you have to, you know, keep a place afloat. You have to pay your rent, you have to pay your mortgage, whatever the case may be. You have to pay your employees if you have employees. So the expense that can come with having a business is a little bit annoying, but you know, all those pros, they definitely make up for it, in my opinion. Speaking of expenses and, you know, having to do a lot of things, there's a lot of back end stuff that happens with a business. It's not just like show up and that's it, you have a business. Like I said, you have to make sure you get your name. You have to make sure that, you know, that your customer service, you're doing this, especially when you're just starting out, you're doing everything else. You're wearing many different hats. Whereas if it's just a hustle, like you want a cake, sure, how much? That much. Okay, cool, pick it up on Sunday. Like there's not much that goes into it. I mean, there can be, but in the basic, like in the core of it, having a business takes way more back end work than you would with a hustle. And on that same note, you cannot dissolve easily. The same example I gave you guys earlier with the marriage and, you know, just a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, you could walk away. You could just pack up your bags and walk away, and nobody's the wiser. Nobody's gonna ask you any questions. That's it. And that's not to say that every business is the same. Some businesses are simpler. Some businesses are more complex and more complicated. If you had employees, if you had a brick and mortar shop, if you had a lot of products, if you had a lot of clients, like all of that is going to play a role. However, in the base, like in the whole core of it, it is a lot harder to dissolve a business, a proper business, than it would be to just call it quits for a hustle. So with all of that being said, I didn't answer you guys' concerns. If you had any concerns about it, I don't think. But I hope that this kind of gave you a little bit of food for thoughts, right? Don't operate your business like you would a hustle, and don't operate your hustle like you would a business, because they're two different things. Determine what it is that you want to do, what it is that your business even is, or that your thing even is. Is it a business or is it a hustle? What do you want? What do you want out of this? Where are you right now? What's the goal? And then it's going to help you move in the right direction, right? So I hope this was somewhat insightful. At least, if anything, it kind of sparked a conversation with yourself, where, you know, if you didn't think about it, or if you didn't even know it was a thing, maybe now you do. So if this video was at all helpful, guys, please give it a thumbs up, and if you liked it, share it with your friends and family. Subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss out on any of my future videos. And that is it for this week's video, you guys. I love you. Talk to you later.